Our first witness is Witness 125. Good morning. The chair will swear you in.
Page 133.
Page 133 on your bundle. Before we start, may I ask anybody representing the government of Islamic Republic of Iran, any of the state agencies of the government of Iran, or any of the 133 named accused of this tribunal?
Thank you, Counsel. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and Counsel. Good morning, Mr. Witness. Would you repeat after me, please? I do solemnly declare that I will speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If you wait there, there'll be some questions from Counsel, followed by questions from the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the witness is giving evidence in his own name. He witnessed numerous atrocities committed by the security forces in November 2019. Please introduce yourself, Mr. Arjuman. Can you please tell the tribunal what you witnessed on 16 and 17 November 2019?
%, and all people were upset. Some of the people around us who were taxi drivers, or other type of drivers, were furious because of the economic hardships that they would have faced. It was 16th of November in the morning that I went to the streets, to Taleghani Street in Sanandaj, on the yard of tobacco organization. A large number of special units, NEPO, and the anti-riot guards with heavy armored vehicles, motorbikes were ready. And I saw them there. There were a lot of other officers on the street, which were the traffic police officers. They were controlling the streets. The Engelab Square of Sanandaj had a number of banks which were higher as compared to the other buildings. And there were some snipers on the top of those buildings. They were plainclothes, and they had rifles. And I saw also the police officers with helmet and baton, and some of them had Kalashnikov in their hands. I also went to Iqbal Square, or Azadi Square, Iqbal or Azadi are the same square in Sanandaj. I went there, it was about 10:30 in the morning. People had turned off their cars and were chanting slogans. Their first slogan, their slogans were firstly quite peaceful. They were asking the police force to support them. They did not receive any support from the side of the police. And in a very short span of time, a large number of people joined the protests. And the strike. And while after, from Pastaran Street and Gendarmerie of Sanandaj, the special unit and the relief unit surrounded people. They belong to the IRGC. And one of the commanders who was leading the opposition in the square, Colonel Javan Mardi, I just remember his surname, Colonel Javan Mardi. I knew him from before. He's a very violent and brutal guy, very furious man. I knew him since '96 when he suppressed the Day 96 protests. I knew him. People were beaten at that time, and he kicked a lady in the leg. I quite remember. He also beat her with a stone in the forehead. It has been a long time since this has happened, so I may forget a little bit. I don't know. The referendum of Kurdistan of Iraq was also suppressed by the same gentleman in '96, and he was provoking his men to attack people. That was when I realized and recognized this guy and became familiar with this guy. He also pushed the protests of 1982 towards violence, and he dispersed people, the people who were sitting on the ground and just chanting slogans peacefully. They dispersed people, they beat people, they threw tear gas at people. If you have any further questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Did you know Colonel Javan Mardi told his people shoot them, have no mercy?
Yes. The word that he was using, and I still remember, was that he was saying, don't have mercy on them, arrest them, beat them. They are undignified, and he used very obscene words. I still remember. Yes.
Thank you. The panel may have some questions for you.
Good morning, witness. I have a few questions. I'd like to get a sense of the atmosphere at the time this chaotic protest was occurring, and it sounds as though it was chaotic. I understand that over the days there were protesters in the street, that they were for the most part peaceful, chanting slogans. But I'm wondering if the protesters ever engaged in any acts of violence themselves, for example, throwing rocks, attacking vehicles, running towards the security officers, that kind of thing.
Not at all. The first people who started violence were the police force, the plainclothes officers, the special unit, and also the RGC officers. They dispersed people, and the protests spread to other cities. The people were being beaten, and there were tear gas used, and plastic bullets were used, and they were firing in the air. So people had to legitimately defend themselves, and they had a conflict with the forces.
And while the security forces were responding in this way, the protesters nonetheless remained in the streets, didn't they? Or did they flee?
The protesters fled to other streets, and also they defended themselves using stones. They had a clash with the forces, and a lot of popular forces were arrested by the police force, security forces, and they were taken to Toyota cars, which were like jails, like cage. And they had arrested people, and they had made some sort of a human shield so that the other people could not attack their cars. And then they attacked people with the same cars. It was in the afternoon that in Sohrawardi Square, which is famous as Faizabad Square, people realized, it was in the afternoon, that ambulance was used to transfer their forces. And people burnt a number of ambulances where the IRGC forces were on.
I'd like to focus actually on the banks, since we've had evidence about banks being attacked across the country in the course of these protests. And if I understand your statement, there were snipers located on the top of the banks. Their faces were covered. But nonetheless, the people in the crowd broke the glass in the banks. Can you explain how that event occurred? And then ultimately that bank, as I understand, was burned, although you're of the opinion it was not the protesters who did that. So I'm wondering if you could just describe that incident for us.
Yes. The protests started in the center of Sanandaj city. In that area, there might have some windows of the banks might have been broken, but no banks were burnt. The security situation was very strong and strict. It was in the afternoon that we went to Karegar Square. And there we realized that one of the banks was burning from inside, started burning from inside. I was there, and I'm certain that nobody burnt the bank. And the bank was being protected heavily. It had a very strong building. It started burning from inside.
You're certain that no one started this fire? Something started it.
Yes, it started from inside. I didn't see, but I am sure that no protester threw anything inside to cause it burning, because the bank was protected. It had very strong doors. Nobody could enter it.
Okay, one last area of questioning. I noticed, was it your observation that when security forces were firing into the area where protesters were, that they were targeting people, any individual people in particular, or were they just firing randomly?
In Karegar Square in the afternoon, I witnessed that a 14 to 16-year-old individual was targeted by a bullet, and then he was taken by a Paycon vehicle to hospital. and from his white shirt, clothes, I realized that he was shot in the chest.
The only targeted killing that you saw or shooting that you saw?
No, it was the second day of the protests in Sharifabad, neighborhood of Sanandaj. We wanted to go to that place. The security situation was the situation was controlled by the security forces. We got close to the area a little bit, and we realized that the people at the end of a highway, the end of which could be seen, the people were being beaten there. And they were shooting at people. When I went back, there were two colonels of the police force who asked us to leave, please. They said, today is not like yesterday. They have permission to shoot. They will shoot you. Don't stand here. And please leave. It was then that these special unit forces with their motorbikes attacked the shopkeepers in front of their shops, watching. They were just watching. They were not protesting, or they were not on a strike. They attacked them and they hit them with very heavy chains as if they wanted to kill them. It was a very heavy environment situation, a heavy atmosphere. It was very difficult to stay there. So we went back to Ferdowsi Square. When we were going back, we realized that a large number of the special unit forces passed that street with motorbikes and with other military vehicles and jeeps.
Do you hear me? Says the witness.
Yes.
And people started to whistle. And it was at that moment that the forces jumped down their vehicles and started shooting. It was a very brutal scene, and it showed that the atmosphere had changed a lot compared to the day before. They had shotguns and they were shooting people. And I knew somebody there, and this person was not even a demonstrator. He was somebody who was just passing by, and he was shot in his leg. He had a wound in his leg, and we of course escaped, and we went to Fereyduni passage, Fereyduni Mall, and over there I saw myself that one of the members of the police force threw a stone to the window of one of the banks there, and also shot a bullet into the eye of someone, and we dragged this person inside this walkway, and other people transported the wounded person from the other side of the walkway to the hospital. I guess that this person went blind afterwards, but I have no news of this person anymore.
Final question in that area. You also mentioned, it goes to what you just said, that there were security forces who were directing fire or other forms of violence, hitting or that kind of thing on people who were not involved in the protests, and that shops had been entered. Is that the case? Did that happen, that security forces actually went into shops and attacked people in the shops? And if that did happen, did it happen a lot, or was this just an isolated incident?
that area that I'm talking about was mostly within the bazaar of Sanandaj, and therefore you have a lot of shops, and the shopkeepers who were standing in front of their shops, they were beaten with heavy chains on their heads. They were beaten up in order to disperse them. And yes, and it was in front of one of the shops that I saw that a person that I knew was shot. And this person was neither a protester nor a demonstrator.
Thank you very much. Your date of birth is given on your statement as February 2000, as I read it. That can't be right, can it?
No, it is correct.
That you said that you know somebody from 1996, which is 4 years before you were born.
Just to let Justice Yakub know that that's the Persian calendar, which equates to 4 years ago, which is 2000.
Oh, 1996 is 4 years ago.
2017 میشه.
It's 2017 in Gregorian calendar.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. That sorts out that confusion.
1390
I meant the year in the Persian calendar 1396, which would be 2017 in the Gregorian calendar.
It says 1996 on the paper, and that's what gave rise to the trouble. I'm sorry about that. All right. So you were 19 in 2 years ago, right? When you saw all these things. What were you doing at the time?
I joined the protesters at that time. We were protesting, we were chanting slogans, including our enemy is right here. It's a lie that our enemy is the USA, and that the IRGC is committing murders and the leader is supporting the murders. And these were the slogans that we were chanting. And at times when it was needed, we would rush towards the forces and we would attack them. And it is, of course, a legitimate defense on our part.
Very badly. What were you doing? Were you working? Were you unemployed? Were you at school or at university? Or what were you doing? That's what I mean.
I had a shop. I had a shop in which a parfumerie. I sold colognes in there.
When had you left school?
من 1 سال قبل.
A year before that, when I was 18.
And you were, as I understand it, against the Iranian state and many of the things it did. I mean, the fuel price was not the only problem.
بله.
Yes.
And, you were opposed to what has been referred to, and you might describe it differently, as the dictatorship in Iran.
بله.
Yes, I oppose the Islamic system and the Islamic Republic and Khamenei himself. Yes, the whole Islamic Republic. Yes, I oppose that.
As an individual or part of a group or organization which opposed the system?
Over there, I was as an individual.
Okay. And the thing that troubles me a little, I would have thought that the police would be representatives of the dictatorship, and therefore the people wouldn't ask the police for support. So I'm a little confused by this, what you say in your statement, that the people asked the police for support. I wonder whether you could explain that, please.
Almost in all demonstrations that happen, which are 100% peaceful, and in a few minutes after that, after they start, the police shows violence, people always ask the police to support them. I've been in many demonstrations, and time and again I've seen during the years that the people chant and say, police force, support us, support us. And of course, they never receive any kind of support from the police.
Because they see the police force as different from the security and the intelligence and the police and the military, or what?
Well, in my view, perhaps the police force is a bit more of a popular force. I know police officers, policemen, who had said to me beforehand that we are from the people, we come from the people. And what I'm telling you is what a police officer told me. And when there is a revolution, Khamenei is not going to tell me, I give you 100,000, 2 months, go, flee. I am the one who would be condemned, whereas he, meaning the leader, is going to escape to foreign countries. And therefore we, the police force, we are from the people and we are going to join the people. This is what I heard from a police officer. And therefore I guess that a great number of the police officers, not only they are not going to put their weapons down, but also they are going to target the enemy.
Then just 2 small questions for clarity. The one is, you were standing, you saw someone standing on top of a wall, and they felled somebody, as the statement reads in English, which probably means that he fell down because there was an attack. And what was that attack, with a baton or with what, if you can tell us?
Yes, there is a square called Nabovat Square in Sanandaj. There we were entangled with the forces and brutally they were beating people up. So we had to escape towards Sirus Street. And when we reached the crossroads of Sirus, we took shelter in a house. And I think that in front of this house there was this parapet, this wall, which was 4 or 5 meters high. And there was this person who was thrown down by the police. And then they dragged him on the ground and took him with them. And I did not see with my own eyes whether this person was a woman or a man.
Thank you very much. I didn't understand that. And the last question is, and I'm not being critical of you, I just want to be clear. You say that this woman was attacked on the head. Her head was broken and it bled. Now, you could, of course, see the blood. I got no troubles with that. And I just want to know what you mean by broken, please.
When we came back from the other street, we saw there was some blood on the ground. And seeing that, we think that when this person was thrown down, he or she came down head first. And that's why there was blood on the ground.
Thank you very, very much for your help. And thank you for your courage in coming here to give evidence too.
Mr. Witness. I would like to understand the pattern on how the police officer treat the women protester, since you indicate in your statement that you saw the police forces kick at the women vagina, and also the same colonel in the demonstration of 2018 also hitting women in front leg. Is that correct?
Perhaps you misunderstood me. When I said the year 96, I mean 1396. It will be 2017. There was this Colonel Javan Mardi, and at that time, he had kicked a woman between the legs. Microphone, please. Microphone, please.
See that the same colonel kicked at the woman vagina in the last demonstration. That was in 2017.
خير. نعم من در
No, I did not see such a thing during the demonstrations of 2019. I did not see it, says the witness.
Good morning, Mr. Mardoukhi. Just a couple of questions, if I may. In your testimony, you started saying that the slogans you were chanting at first were peaceful, but that changed quickly. Can you just explain what the trigger for the change was, or what made you change the slogans and what those became?
The brutality of the security forces, the beatings, shooting tear gases, attacking with water cannons towards people, and I received the drops of water myself on my hand, and I realized that it was hot water that they were shooting towards people. And then the slogans became the top is Khamenei, and this is dictatorial regime. So that's how the slogans became.
Thank you. And following up on what my learned colleague was asking with regards to the view of the police, and I just wanted to clarify, was the slogans asking the police to support you an indication? And then you mentioned later on as well that police officers were telling you that you should leave because it's going to get worse. In your community, are the police more trusted? I understand that they're not fully trusted, but are they more trusted than other forces?
No, because during these years, the police have also proved that they will not support the people. And they are also mandated by Khamenei to suppress the people. At the same time, I do think that there are a lot of people among them, especially these past 1 or 2 years, who have themselves problems as the other people, such as economical problems. So I think, push comes to shove, they will also join the protesters.
خير.
No.
Could it be, therefore, deduced that the chanting for the support of the police was more hopeful than it was an expectation?
Yes, the people were chanting the slogans anyway, but the police was not supporting them. But I heard in the news that in the province of Khuzestan, the groups that had problems such as lack of water and drought and the other problems that exist in Khuzestan, there were a number of police officers who joined the protesters.
That the protesters, or I think you said people, burnt some ambulances. Can you explain a little bit more about that and why ambulances in particular would be targeted?
It was due to the fact that they realized that the IRGC are going here and they using the ambulances. They were abusing the ambulances and they were using the ambulances to suppress people.
And finally, I also want to thank your courage for appearing today. Why did you do that? Why have you appeared here today?
I'm here today because of the blood that was shed, because of the 1,500 people who were killed. And also, I deemed it my duty to do it because I was there. I was one of them, and I could not do anything for those who were killed or their bereaved mothers. So I thought I should do something for them.
And what are you hoping that will achieve for them?
I hope that in the very near future we will be able to eradicate the Islamic regime and the Islamic Republic in Iran so that the people of Iran can gain once again the freedom that they deserve.
Thank you very much.
I think that's all questions from the panel, Council.
No further questions.
Mr. Witness, thank you very much for attending. We appreciate the effort you made and the statement and attending this morning. So thank you.
ممنون و متشکر از همکار.
Thank you to you and your colleagues.